I will put a banana fabric in the same block as like a cow or a pig or a dog, with a strawberry. Like, it's totally random. It's just a, vomit of color and random stuff. Because for me, my whole love of the fabric just came from these adorable designs that immediately made me smile, immediately made me just want to create something. And because it is all art. All of the fabric is designed by an artist.
You're listening to Fussy Cutters Club podcast, a show that gives you permission to cut into the good fabric so you can make quilts you love. And now your host, who believes it's not a crime to love using novelty fabrics, Ange Wilson.
Hello, Fussy Cutters. Today we are talking to someone who took a dream that I had and made it reality without even knowing that it was my dream she was creating. I'm talking to Christina from Fabric Pop. Christina runs a fabric store online and in person where you can go and shop for fussy cut-friendly fabrics. Right? Genius. That is Christina's focus. That is what she loves. That's the thing that sparks joy for her. And it's the thing that makes me love her even more because she's a super nice person and she's fabulously talented and she runs this amazing store. So in this episode, we sit down and chat about, how she got started, all of that sort of stuff. I hope at the end of this chat that you will go and check out Christina's store, show her some love, add her to your regular shopping rotation, check out her Instagram account. And if you could do me a little favor, just between you and me, if you could email or direct message Christina and ask her to run a 10 by 10 challenge, then I'd be super appreciative. And you'll understand more when you listen to the episode. So without further ado, let's get chatting. Hi, Christina. Welcome. For those that don't know you, what do you do and who are you? Well, that's a big philosophical question. Who are you? But what do you do in the world of quilting?
Okay, yes. We'll keep it to the quilting and the fabric world because, yes, we're not going to be here all day. But in the fabric world, so my name is Christina and I own an online fabric shop called Fabric Pop. I started in 2021, so I'm relatively new, and I am all about novelty fabrics. All about them. I love fussy cutting. It is my all-time favorite. It is really what got me into getting into quilting and all of the fabric. It was those fun novelty prints that just stole my heart, and I decided I loved them so much, I needed to be surrounded by fabric all the time and start a shop.
And that's how most of them start, I think. So what is it? I mean, you're singing my tune. A store that is just all about fussy cutting is heaven to me. So what is it about fussy cutting that you think got you sucked in? Like, what is it that you enjoy about it that makes you happy about fussy cutting? Why fussy cutting and not just cutting?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind, if I'm just cutting a really cute fabric, I'm probably chopping heads off and legs and stuff, and I can't have that. I can't be cutting these cute little things up. I have to frame them. And it's funny, I didn't grow up quilting or in the quilting world. I didn't have any family that kind of got me into it or anything like that. I was always just kind of crafty and I like to do stuff with my hands. And then I found on Pinterest, because of course I would scroll Pinterest all day, and I found a fabric by Sarah Watts. It was the little black bears on a white background. I was thinking you probably know which one I mean. It was very popular. Now it's an extremely coveted treasure. If you can get a little scrap, you are just, it's gold if you can get some. But I saw that and I didn't even know it was fabric. I just saw it and it caught me. It just stole my heart. 100%. I found out it was fabric. And then that kind of got me just off into this rabbit hole of fabric and all of the novelty prints. And of course, if I'm going to get this fabric, I have to cut out these little bears. I can't cut them in half. I can't cut them up.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't even know that was called fussy cutting. I just was like, I'm going to cut it out because this is what I want to see. And it's funny, and I'm going to fangirl a little bit here, but I really got into fussy cutting when I made the 100 days, 100 blocks quilt from your quilt along in 2019.
Which would have been kinship?
Kinship, yes.
Yep.
Yes. And I decided that I was going to do that, even though I had never made a quilt before.
Yep.
And I was going to fussy cut every single block. You know, an element of every block was going to have some kind of fussy cut in it.
Yep.
And that totally solidified my love for 1, novelty fabrics, 2, fussy cutting, and 3, quilting.
That's amazing. Because that quilt was designed for fussy cutters, which
Yes.
everyone's like, oh, it's a quilt pattern. And I'm like, no, this is for fussy cutters. The scale of those blocks and the amount of just free space where it's not a HST or a flying geese or something like that, so that fussy cutters could go to town, essentially.
Yeah.
And so it makes me very happy to hear that you're like, I just wanted to fussy cut and I'm going to do this. And that's because that's what it's for, right? And so it's really exciting to know that that little connection exists where you've gone, I'm going to make this. And now you're a fabric store and selling fabric and doing amazing things with fussy cutting. And so it's because I'm the same. I didn't come from a background of sewers. My mum sewed a little bit when I was a kid, but it was like clothing and stuff like that. We don't have quilts in tropical North Queensland because it's the tropics. And so it wasn't a culture that I grew up with. But when I found it, I was so happy. So
I know that feeling, yes.
And so to be able to create, is it just me, or do you do things where when you're making the block and you're fussy cutting, you tell a little story in your head about what those little bits are and what's in this block, and you theme the block around that story? Or do you just go, this goes with that, with that, with that, with that? And so do you have a process, or is it organic? How do you do it? How do you approach it?
For me, the whole novelty fabric and fussy cutting thing is cute just for the sake of being cute. And I will put a banana fabric in the same block as like a cow or a pig or a dog, you know, with a strawberry. Like, it's totally random. It's just a, you know, vomit of color and random stuff. Because for me, my whole love of the fabric just came from these adorable designs that immediately made me smile, immediately made me just want to create something. And because it's like all, I mean, it is all art. All of the fabric is designed by an artist.
Yep.
And it's so inspiring in and of itself. And I'm using somebody's art to make more art. And it's just, everything all the time, all the different animals, all the foods, all the quirky stuff. The quirkier, the better in my book. Yeah. Especially when I'm looking through catalogs to buy fabric for my shop. If I see something totally off the wall, like, I just have to have it. The goofier, the better.
Yep, I'm exactly the same. I was like, you have a pineapple wearing sunglasses on a unicycle doing this. I will have that, thank you. That someone will love that the way I do. Yes, please. And so, do you have, I'm guessing Sarah Watts holds a special place in your heart, and you must be excited that Sarah's releasing another bear-based collection, Rock and Roll Bears.
Oh, gosh, yes. Oh, my God. Yeah, she definitely holds a special place in my heart. And yes, the bears, I just can't wait. I can't wait. I see people already have some and are making it. making things. And I'm like, oh, I need that so bad. I just cannot wait.
I know, because I've got a bad habit of waking up and checking Instagram first, because I like to start the day with a bit of inspirational eye candy. One of the first ones I saw this morning was someone EPPing. I think the collection's called Teddy and the Bears, and they had EPP'd like with the bears in a circle and the lightning bolt and the drum kit, and I was just like, I've got to get my hands on this collection. I cannot wait. And it's also super cool because Sarah's really lovely as well. So, like, all of the people with Ruby Star are really lovely. So Sarah holds a special place. Is there a designer who you 100% everything they do, 90% of everything they do, you're like, I've got to have that? Or are you more my collection is a bit of everything? Or is it a mix of both? How do you...
I'll say it's a mix of both. Of course, the original Cotton and Steel ladies, the whole group. I feel like when I started learning about fabric and really looking into what's out there and what they actually print on fabric, because before I didn't know there was fun fabric. When I thought of quilting, right? When I thought of quilting, I thought of like those little tiny floral prints and just real muted colors. And that just doesn't spark my creativity at all. And then when I was really getting into looking through the different designers and the manufacturers and seeing, there's, a dog eating a pineapple on it, all that stuff. That was so exciting. That was incredibly exciting. There's so many different designers that I absolutely love. Of course, those ladies. But one that really sticks out for me is Ray Ritchie. She designs for Dear Stella. I don't always buy everything that she, as far as for my shop, I'll buy maybe for my own personal stash. Yeah. But the way that she illustrates, I find just so inspiring. It's so whimsical and just light, and there's so much quirky stuff too thrown in there, but it's like this beautiful, a lot of it I imagine to be this like ornate, beautiful wallpaper that you would see on an old, gorgeous home. Yeah. But within it, you would find these quirky little, there was one that I fell in love with. It was a frog. It was like this dapper frog, and he had like a monocle or something, and he just looked so fancy with this little tie. Adorable. So she definitely holds a special place in my heart. If I look at a fabric and I immediately just like have to like clutch my chest, like, oh my God, I need that. That's her stuff.
And I find myself drawn to the people who are, as you said before, like artists, like illustrators are my favorite fabric designers. And Ray has I'm going to call her Ray. I've never met her. Miss Ritchie has an Etsy store where she sells prints of her pictures and paintings and her creativity and things like that. And I think I have this dream of a toilet room, like a room where your toilet is in, where the walls are just all gold frames with Ray Ritchie prints like all over the walls. And so when you're in using the facilities, you can just gaze at these amazing different prints, and I want it to be so different to the rest of the house that when you open the door and go in there, it's just like, bam, okay. Because she does like forest, I want to say cottagecore kind of vibe to it. But
I would agree with that,
a forest mythical, like fairies, and she does a lot of fireflies which turn up in little bits, which are great for 1-inch squares. But it's that real character driven. She's telling a story. She has her own universe that she uses to illustrate her fabric collections. So Dear Stella's one of my favorite fabric houses, but Dear Stella, we can't get it in Australia, really. It's so rare to find a store that's got Dear Stella in it. And so a lot of times I feel like going on a treasure hunt for Dear Stella, what am I going to find? So is there anyone else that you kind of go, or what's the, this is my favorite question. What's the fabric that's out of print that if you could get a bolt of, you'd sell something dear to you to have?
Well, 100% those bears, the black bears with the party hat. Some of them have a party hat, some of them have a bow tie.
Some have a heart.
I think maybe some, yeah, and it's a little metallic accent.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of it left that I'm hoarding. You know, it's use the good fabric. I know.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I use like one bear at a time because I'll fussy cut it into something. But I can't get enough of that fabric. I cannot get enough. And they are remaking it with a little bit of a different outfit with the rock and roll style. But my heart has been stolen by the little bears with the little crowns.
Yeah. This is where I tell you I've got 5 meters of it in my collection.
Oh my gosh. If you weren't all the way in Australia, I'd be over there.
Because I did the same, right? I bought it. And then I was like, gee, I really love this. So every time I saw it, I bought a little bit more. I bought a little bit more. I bought a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know whether...
I'll bring some Dear Stella and then trade you for some of that. Because I have a lot of Dear Stella.
But that's the thing, right? Dear Stella, no one ever talks about Dear Stella. I feel like they're the underdog of the fabric world because they are so good, but no one sort of goes, oh yeah, Dear Stella's my go-to. But when you talk to fussy cutters, they're all going, oh yeah, did you see that collection with Dear Stella? And you're like, yes, I did. Why aren't Dear Stella out marketing to fussy cutters? But yes.
Yeah.
So today, when I woke up this morning, I've been sitting on knowing something for a while, or for a few weeks, and I'm very excited. But Lizzie House has a new collection out with Moda. And so as a old school Lizzie House fan, I'm like, yeah. Is there a fabric designer who you love? And this will sound funny, who you love, but you're kind of like, no one else in my circle gets the genius that is this person? Or
now there are a lot of different fabrics, like designs and stuff that I just fall in love with right away because they're so quirky. And I'm going to use Lisa Hernandez as an example. She designs for Dear Stella, and she designs these prints with black cats, and it's black cats doing the most random, adorable stuff. Like, so cute. The one most recently that was my favorite was the little black cats in the ocean, and they have little like floaties on their arms, and they're like swimming around in the ocean and stuff. And it's just so funny, and I just die. I just love it so much. And I think to myself, I have to have that. I'm going to buy a whole bolt of that for my shop. But then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, that's totally my jam, but is that other people's jams? You know, is that too out there for me to buy to sell? And I am consistently surprised, very happily surprised that there are so many folks out there who get it and want it, and it inspires them and it makes them laugh, and I have to have it just like I had to have it. So I would say that, I'm just always very happily surprised that like my people are out there.
Oh yeah. And they're like, the thing that I think too with fussy cutting that I've found over the time that I've been in the industry is that once people see you use the odd fabric, and I air quoted then the odd fabric, they'll fall in love with it too. Because a lot of times people are like, I see it, I love it, it's just too weird, I don't know how to use it. And so when they see it in a block or in EPP or something, it helps them understand the joy of that fabric and how to use it. And so when you come across accounts like Fabric Pop, go follow them on Instagram at Fabric Pop, and it's showing people how to use those fabrics. That's what gets people hooked to fussy cutting. That's what gets them appreciating the odd fabrics and looking for the differences out there and enjoying that. A good friend of mine, Nick Ships, who's on Instagram, and she has a really scrappy fussy cut style, and I love it. Her and I often share stuff where we go, check out how weird this is. Like, the weirder, the better. And so, and I think with fabric, right, the fabric designer has to convince a room full of people at the fabric company that people are going to buy it, right? So I always think if the fabric people okayed the collection, there's people out there that will buy the collection. You just have to find those people. And so it's a nice service that you provide the world. You're a real hero, like a firefighter or a nurse.
Making people smile, honestly, like, that sounds so cliche. You know, like, oh, I just make people smile. It's like change the world. But, you know, in a small way, people get this fabric and it makes them happy for a little while, and it sparks a little bit of creativity, and they can make something with their hands, maybe instead of doom scrolling on the internet or whatever, you know, and it does kind of snowball for people into more joy in their life.
And I am 100% down with that. And that's my thing, is it's about taking people out of the fear factory that is our lives and into just being in the moment and present and doing that. And I hate that. That sounds so woo-woo. But it's that thing of when you're making stuff with your hands and you're doing stuff and it makes you happy to see that fabric, that's a little less time that someone's spending, as you said, doom scrolling, paying attention to all the stuff designed to make you scared. And so for me, it is really important to get people to understand to buy the fabric that they love. If you love little florals in muted designs and you're all into the cottage stuff, go for it. 100% dive in, indulge that love, because the more you work with the fabric you love, the more you'll work. And so, it's all of those little things that, and fussy cut novelty fabric's the same. I always really rally against the fact that people go, novelty fabric's for kids. And I'm like, novelty fabric is for kids at heart, because they're the people that are happy and finding it and amusing themselves and all of that sort of stuff. Is there a fabric collection that you now love that at the time you were like, I don't see the appeal, or have you been surprised by a fabric collection that's come and gone and you've had to now go back and find it? Or
well, you know, I kind of went through a weird period, like when I was getting into loving fabric, before I decided to just dive headfirst into a shop. I almost felt kind of like what you're saying when people say, oh, novelty fabric is not for you, it's for kids, or, you know, making stuff for kids. I kind of, went through a weird period where I kind of felt like I shouldn't like this stuff as much as I do, because it's juvenile, you know, juvenile prints, you know, that's a lot of the stuff would be categorized under that. And it was almost like I had to tell myself, no, you can like that. You know, if that makes you happy, then that makes you happy, and you shouldn't be ashamed or worried about, you know, maybe what other people say, because everybody's using these solid colors. And for me, solid colors, of course I love color, but solid colors in quilts, they're beautiful, but they don't do it for me. I don't really want to use solid. I want to use the crazy fabrics. So after a while, I kind of was struggling with, like, is this okay? Am I doing something weird? Am I weird because I like this? You know, weird fabrics. But then after a while, it's like, you know what? There's so much bogus stuff you got to deal with and all these rules that you got to deal with, working and just stuff you got to do as an adult.
Yeah.
I'm not going to impose all these rules on myself. Like, oh, you can only like this type of art or, No, I'm going to like what I like, and I'm going to encourage everybody else. If you like it, I don't care if somebody else says it's silly, or do whatever you want. I mean, I like a lot of other silly stuff. I mean, I like doing jigsaw puzzles on I have a jigsaw puzzle that I'm about to finish after I talk to you. And I used to be, right? I mean, I used to be kind of, I'm not going to go telling people I do jigsaw puzzles. But now I've kind of embraced this whole do what makes you happy. If it's quirky and fun and it makes you happy, go for it with all your gusto.
Yeah.
So
life is too short to not be 100%. Enjoying it. And it, like you said, there's heaps of stuff that, like now, right? When we finish this, so it's morning for me. I'm going to go back into the house. The kid's going to be awake, and I'm going to suggest to him that we play Minecraft together so that we can have mother-son time together. And really, it's just because I want to build cute little cottages. Like, it's not. Mate.
Yeah. That sounds fun to me.
Yeah. And again, he's like, Mum, what are you doing? And I'm like, there's a cute little bear over here. It's a polar bear cub. Look at how cute it is. He's like,
oh my God. No.
But so, and again, I think it's a fussy cutter's mindset. But I used to play, and this paint me as a really bad nerd. I used to play World of Warcraft quite a lot, and you used to have to do quests where you would have to kill like a certain amount of bunnies or kill, like to get points and level up and all this sort of stuff. And I'd be the one going, no, I can't kill them. And people were like, they're just pixels on the screen. And I'm like, but they're so cute. I don't want to kill them.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Can we find another way? Can we just maybe corral them into an area that counts?
What if I build them a house and set them up as a consistent food source and water and look after them? Will that count?
Yeah.
But it's in everything. And I think that's the thing with fussy cutting that I really loved about it was it was a safe space to play, or it is a safe space to play with stuff that just makes you happy. And when the quilts are on our bed, because as my father will attest, I don't give many quilts away. So we have a massive collection. And as we rotate through the quilts on the beds, it's the joy again of seeing the stuff that I've used. And I go, oh yeah, that's that. And really early on, I made Katie Jones, who is I'm a Ginger Monkey. She used to have a blog called I'm a Ginger Monkey, and she gave a free pattern out, and she called it the Scrap Vomit Quilt, and it's literally a postage stamp quilt. But I went out and made a giant one, and my rule was that I wasn't going to repeat any fabric in it. And there's 2,500 squares. So I was like, I'm not going to repeat any fabrics. I swapped fabrics. I hunted for fabrics. I bought little scrappy pieces of fabric and curated all of these. And I think in the whole quilt, there's only 2 fabrics that are in there that are repeated by mistake. But there is one scrap that someone sent me in an exchange, a swap, and it's Elvis. And it's Elvis in his jailhouse rock, skinny, good-looking Elvis in there. And that is, out of the 2,000 squares, that's the one square that makes me really happy because it's so unexpected to see Elvis in the middle of this quilt. And that's the thing. I'm like, that's the stuff that you should be doing. We should be encouraging people to double down on what makes them happy. And so with Fabric Pop, you ship internationally, right? So when I'm finished this, I can go on and I go, what, dear Stella, have you got in stock? So anyone from around the world can indulge their fabric desires. Is there, I guess, the question I ask every fussy cutter is there a quilt on your must-do quilt bucket list? That you haven't made?
This is going to sound totally crazy.
A Jane or a La Paz or...
It's kind of what fussy cutters are like, right? Totally crazy.
Yeah.
So I made, and this is probably the most like popular thing I ever made, right? It's a 10 by 10 inch square, and it's a quilt because it has a top and a back and batting. It is a quilt. Nobody's going to tell me it's not a quilt, even though it's just a 10 by 10 square.
It's a mini quilt.
It's a mini quilt, but it is 100 1-inch fussy cut squares. And I bring that to all of my quilt shows and like pop-up events when I set up my tables, because it's a really good example of, hey, let me show you this crazy fussy cutting thing that I did. And people look at it and they just, oh my gosh, you're crazy. Most people say, oh, you're crazy. But then most of those people then are like, I think I'm going to try that. So it's very satisfying for me to see that flip of that initial like horror of why would you do that? You know, that's just crazy. And then they want to do it. But I have this idea of doing that same mini quilt, but in like an actual quilt size, 1-inch fussy cut squares, but a whole ton of them.
There's
like,
nothing to say you couldn't.
You'd need a lot. You would need a lot. But I've been thinking about that, and that's one of those things that maybe it's just so crazy that it just I have to do it.
What if you ran a fabric pop swap where everyone made 10-inch fussy cut squares and you just swapped them? Because then
I was actually thinking about doing some kind of like, send me your 1-inch motifs or scraps and we can swap, and maybe I can, we can do some kind of swap or something like that, because I would need a lot of, and I would be like you, I wouldn't want any of the fabrics to repeat.
Yeah.
So you'd need a lot.
And we'll be right back. Are you looking for a safe space to express who you are as a fabricaholic? Look, that seems funny and it's all weird and it's right for me to say that. But let's face it, if you're listening to this podcast, there's a fair chance that you have quite a substantial fabric collection and that you pay attention to what fabrics are being released, that you like being creative, that you make time for patchwork, and that you look for friends who share a similar outlook on life and a similar appreciation for creativity and sewing and fabric collection and what the latest designers are doing. Look, if that's you, the good news is I've started a safe place for all of us to get together. It's all about having a place where you can come, share your creativity, share your favourite fabrics. We're not going to be quilt police. We don't care if your favourite fabric is a fabric that's covered with rubber ducks. Bring it, sister. That's what we want to see. So if you're looking for like-minded people, why not check out Society Gnome? You can find all the details at gnomeangel.com. We look forward to welcoming you to the group. And now, on with the chat. Swapping is the best way to go if you want to do something bananas and not have repeats, because it's a lot easier to dabble in someone else's stash. So I am all down. Like in my head, I'm like, yeah, you could do that. Yep. And if you knocked off a 10-inch block a month, then you could have one done. Like in my head, I'm like, yeah, she could do that. She could totally do that.
I could do that. I could do it. I have to commit, though. That's something you really got to commit to.
Yeah, but it's not like a 10-inch block every 2 months or something isn't. If you were making other projects, look, I'll talk you into it. If you were making other projects at the time and cutting a 1-inch square as you were going, and just started collecting all your 1-inch squares, you could totally have it done.
Yeah, I think the hardest part would be collecting the fabric. Actually making and sewing it together is no big whoop. Yeah. But yeah, collecting, and then I would want to arrange it in probably like a rainbow, like an ombre type of thing. Like that's what I ended up doing with the kinship quilt for the 100 blocks. I printed out your little like the color in diagram. And then I cut out all the little blocks and I colored them in, and then I arranged them. And so then it ends up being sort of rainbow, red up in the top, down, the whole way to like purple and grays.
People go to me all the time, how do you color plan? And I'm like, scissors, crayons, paper.
Yeah.
That's it's not difficult. Just cut it out. Doesn't work, throw it in the bin. Do you have a color that's really hard for you to find prints that you like? Like, I find a good yellow is really difficult to find to add because, again, I'm a big fan of the rainbow too. So I find yellow tends to be where I stagnate. And green, a really nice green, is often hard to find. So
you took those right out of my brain. Yeah, yellow and green.
When I think about designing a like I daydream sometimes about designing a fussy cut collection, but I'm like, I'd have to do.
Who does it? Who doesn't do that?
It's normal, right? I think about. I would just have a 2-color colorway, yellows and greens. Let me fill the gap for you people.
Yeah.
But I think Heather Ross does a really good yellow. And again, Dear Stella do some really good greens. Lizzie House, for a while, they had a really lovely deep Kelly green in her collection. That was nice. But yeah, green and yellow. Surprisingly, there's a lot of purple.
I'm excited about Lizzie House because when I kind of was getting into it, it
Lizzie
wasn't
was getting
really
out.
Yeah. So, and I would see these out of print fabrics on like de-stash sites and stuff and just in people's projects. And I was like, who makes that? No, Lizzie House. And it's like, well, you can't get it anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see more of that because that seems to be a very, like a fan favorite, Lizzie House. So
we have a Fussy Cutter episode with Lizzie that's, when you and I are talking, it's coming out next week, but it's, it'll be in the archives when your episode goes to air. But I sat down, dream conversation, and spoke to Lizzie about her fabric designs, her upcoming collection, like what she has planned for the future. And I literally, because I didn't know when we booked the appointment, the interview, that she had another collection coming, and she told me on the interview, and I'm like, I'm going to need a moment. I'm going to cry.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. You'd have been like shocked.
I was like,
don't you play with me right now.
All my dreams have come true right now. And then when I got off the call and I went into my husband and I'm like, babe, Lizzie House is bringing out more fabric. He's like,
Yeah. But you had to tell someone.
I'm like, I can't tell the world. You'll have to do. And he's like, I don't get it. And I'm like, you know that big tub of fabric that I've said to you, if the house is on fire, you have to go back for that before you go back for the kid? That lady, she's bringing out more. He's like, okay.
So there'll be more tubs to make sure you grab, yes.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So I like, people go, oh, when you travel, you go to museums and art galleries and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, no, when I travel, I go to fabric stores because I could wander a fabric store for hours looking at the art on their shelves. And they're like, whoop. And I kind of go, that's what makes me happy. I love fabric. I love walking through, looking at it, looking at how the designer's chosen the colors, the placement, the scale, the repeat, all of that sort of stuff. And they're like, okay. And I think that's, to me, some people go antiquing. My goal is to find out a print fabric that I really love. And so Lizzie, when I got into quilting in 2011, she was just on the end of her collections with Andover. And so I got some of the last ones by the yard, but then everything else I've had to go find and scour the internet for and pay through the nose for. And so to me, that fabric is more about the adventure and the hunt and the find than anything else. And I think that's what's so great about fabric And fussy cutters, like that's, like you said, when you find a print that you really love and it makes you happy, it's that primal kind of emotional response to that made me laugh, that made me be amused, or a lot of the fabric I get, it's like it reminds me of somebody else, or, you know, I know our kid will love anything with dinosaurs. So if I can find, like when Chula Pink released Raw, I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I was like, where were you when he was 3 and he would have blown his top to see this? Now he's 11 and he's got opinions and friends who judge him. And I'm going to have to be like, babe, this is really cute. Like, don't you love this dinosaur? He's going to be like, Mum, just put it on the back. So,
I totally agree, because like with the novelty fabrics, you have this instant connection because you see this fabric with, you know, foxes on it, and you think, oh my gosh, my niece loves foxes or is super into foxes right now, and it makes that connection and sparks your creativity. You make that connection, and then you're, you know, before you know it, you're making like a little zipper pouch for your niece with her favorite thing on it.
Yep.
And that's what I really love, like, about running the fabric shop, especially when I'm in person. You know, being online, I don't get to like really geek it out with people about fabric, but when I go to quilt shows, people come and they look and they see something really goofy and they just laugh. They're like, what the heck? Where did you get this fabric? And now I have people who know my shop. They'll come and they'll say, I need a print with ice cream cones on it. And I'll say, I have that, you know. And I had somebody who was looking for a fabric recently when I was at a pop-up. She wanted milk jugs. And that is such a random thing, right?
Laurie Holt.
I really, you know, milk jugs, something with milk jugs. You know what? I have that. And it was just this moment of everyone was so excited. Everyone around was like, oh my gosh, that's the perfect fabric. I live for those moments.
Yeah.
I absolutely live for those moments.
Because it's contagious happiness, right? Because it's the same thing.
Absolutely.
Like when I see the dinosaur fabric, it makes me happy because I go, oh, dinosaur fabric. And then I'm happy because I know there's going to be secondhand happiness, because once I use it, he'll be happy when he sees it, as long as it's not too naff. And so I'm like, it's that you pass on the happiness. And even, I don't know whether your friends are like it, but mine in the fabric world are like, send me random stuff and go, I saw this and thought of you.
Oh, yeah. I love that because it's always something totally weird. And I'm like, yes, that's me.
Yeah. And then I go, you only bought me a fat quarter. I'm going to need more. But yeah, it's that thing of, it is passing on happiness through this thing that we make with our hands and we are intentional about and we are considered about. And I think every fussy cutter that I've had the pleasure of meeting has always been really generous and really joyful. And I think it reflects in their work. And so I'm like, when people are like, oh, why do you fussy cut? And I think originally I got into it because it was this way of expressing myself through fabric and using fabric I loved and all of that sort of stuff. But now it's very much about finding the other fabric nerds and going, hey, did you see this? Did you see that? Did you, like, here, have a little bit of this from my stash and here. Da. And so it's like this gift that just kind of grows the more we use it. Is there a make that you've seen? Like, who do you look to for inspiration when you're doing stuff or planning stuff? Or when your sojo is ebbing, is there someone that you go to and go, oh, I go and look at that account or do you just go to Pinterest? How do you spark that joy when it's not there?
Well, I do love Instagram for quilty inspiration. I will admit I only follow accounts that consistently post quilty stuff. projects, fabrics, because I don't want it to feel social media-y, kind of like how my Facebook feels. I want it to be like Pinterest, but with people I can chat with.
Yep.
And comment on. So I love Instagram for it. Absolutely love it. But I think my go-to when I'm feeling like not really into it and I'm trying to spark it is honestly just pulling out a box or a fabric, pulling some fabric off the shelf and not having a plan, just kind of playing with it, pulling bolts and just kind of matching up colors and, oh, this kind of looks good with this and this kind of looks good with that. And just kind of playing and looking at my fabric that I haven't looked at in a while, looking at my OG, don't try not to cut into, hoarded, very valuable fabric, just kind of looking through it and just kind of touching it and feeling it and all that stuff. That seems to really kind of get me in the mood, because I'll see a fabric that maybe I sort of fell out of love with, and so I kind of push it to the back of the shelf. But now I'm pulling it out, and I thought, you know what? Now I remember why I bought this. I love this fabric. And then, oh, you know what? This goes good with this other fabric that I just got, and just kind of playing. I love doing that.
And we'll be right back. If you're like me, you love quilting. You love fabric. You love patchwork. You love everything to do about it. When you're not doing something for work related or family related, or you've got free time on your hands, what you're thinking about is quilting. Quilting, 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 fabric, 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 patchwork, patchwork, patchwork. That's all it is. If this is you, then I have the challenge for you. 100 days, 100 blocks. It's a simple challenge. I ask you to sew one patchwork block a day for 100 days. If you're interested in sewing along with me for 100 days as we make a 100 block sampler quilt, then check out all the information at gnomeangel.com. Click the link in our bio and description for more, and I can't wait to see you there and to sew along with you. And now, on with the chat. So do you pick a project and then find fabrics for it, or do you have fabrics and then find a project for it?
I definitely fabrics first. Because the fabric, I feel like, sparks the project. Because I could pick any project and, then pick the fabric, but I feel like the spark has to come from the fabric because that's what I'm working with.
Yeah.
Whatever I'm going to be looking at the whole time I'm making this project needs to consistently, keep my interest and make me happy. So the fabric definitely first. And a lot of times I'll just start fussy cutting out of my stash. I've done this recently. I actually do this all the time. If I want to sew something, but I don't know what I'm going to make, I could spend all day looking at patterns that I have, looking at patterns online, project ideas through books. But I just love to start cutting fussy cuts out. I start sewing them together, and then I decide what it's going to be after that. When I first started sewing, I started doing bags, a lot of zipper pouches, handbags, and I kind of got more complicated doing like backpacks and more complex bags. So I usually end up making a bag when I start fussy cutting and just putting things together. Let's throw a zipper on this, and now it's a bag. Yeah. Because they can be kind of quick and easy, and then I get my sojo back.
Yeah, you get your fix.
And then maybe I can tackle a bigger project after that.
So are you, can you sew, when it comes to quilts, are you a one block person, or are you has to be like a sampler?
I'll admit, I make a lot of single blocks, and then they don't end up in the project that I originally thought they were going to be in.
Yep. I feel you.
Right? I love different types of blocks. I really like to try different blocks that I haven't tried before. And then I'll make it, and then I don't want to make the same block over and over again because that doesn't do it for me. Like the first time I make it, that was awesome. I loved it. Now I want to make something different. So yes, those those sampler quilts I like, but I don't always like to make those blocks and put them together. Like, I like each individual block, but I don't know about putting them all together. But I like the variety of different blocks. So I'll make them and then I'll make like a bag or I'll make something else out of them.
Yep. I started framing fabric and blocks because I was like, at the moment I really love that. And so if I frame it and hang it on the wall, then I can just swap them out and put another block of the like that I'm crushing on at the moment, but I only made one of in the frame. And so
I love that idea.
It's a little bit of art and it's interchangeable. Like I can just swap them out. It's not a big drama. Frames at IKEA are like a couple of bucks. It's not. And so that and like the design wall, I tend to have odds and ends on the design wall all the time. And I'm like, oh, that I really like that. I'll get back to making that. Or, you know, sometimes I find I cannot sleep for thinking of a block. Like, and so I have to get it out of my system if I want to sleep again. And right. So like, it's just weird. And I go to my husband, do you lay awake at night and think about Lego stuff? And he's like, no. And I'm like, but I lay awake and think about blocks. And he's like, yeah, you are your own special kind of person. And I'm like, yeah. But it's that, and that's why I love samplers and why I predominantly design samplers is because I get bored easily with the one block quilts, but they're the quilts that I look at and I go, gee, they're really lovely. Like when I see what other people do with them and I'm like, oh, I wish I could create like that, but it's the samplers that I keep coming back to. And having a talk with someone in a business realm a few weeks ago and they were like, 100 days is a long time to be doing something. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, I know. And sometimes I struggle to get to the end, but 100 different blocks is an amazing thing. Like, yeah. Maybe do 3 30-day challenges burst apart. And I'm like, no, I want to see them all together, all in one. And they're like, okay. But it's like the 10-inch square, right? You want to see 100 fussy cut little squares together. And that's what makes you happy. So I'm looking forward to the fabric pop 10-inch challenge when you
Now I spoke it out loud and now I'm going to have to do it, right?
Yep. And in my head, I'm already going, oh, I know which 100 prints I've got that fit 1-inch square. Because that's the other thing, finding a scale, finding a print. So, okay, back up a bit. Are you like me? If I was doing the 10-inch challenge, as I'm now affectionately calling it.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Did you, when you cut the motif for your 1-inch squares, do you like them not to have any other bit in it? Yeah.
Ideally, yes. So that's what would make it so hard. And I had 100 in my stash.
Yeah.
Which is like almost kind of like, oh, I don't even want to admit that. Yeah, but I had 100, no repeats. And they were all, I know. Yeah.
Sorry.
As I'm looking at your massive stash behind you, it's just like, my eyes like bugged out.
In theory, I run a shop, but I don't. It's just my stuff. I use it all the time.
Yeah, so it makes you happy.
Yeah. So you had 100 fabrics in your very small stash, because 100's only small.
Right. And they all worked out perfect. They didn't have that background noise, as I like to call. But beyond that, I had a lot of rejects that would fit within 1 inch, but it didn't quite have that like fussy cut. I am really hyper focused on this motif. It had like a lot of stuff in the background, so they got rejected.
Yeah.
So I guess I could, if I was more lenient with my fabric choices, it would probably be easier. But I like it to be a certain way, and you know how that is.
I do know how that is. But and that's the so I'm friends with Christy Lee of Quiet Play, and when she first started designing fabric, I was we were talking about what she was going to do, and I was like, dude, negative space around your motifs. Please, please, please. And so she did rainbow scissors in her make collection, which I selfishly bought bolts of because I'm like, rainbow scissors. And we spoke while she was doing it, and I was like, could you please just put enough space around it so that just the scissors will appear when I fussy cut them, which she graciously did. And it just makes me so happy to see a motif. Like this is really nuts. I've cut the motif and there's not been enough to make up the block. And so I've cut, like if there's spare single color fabric, like a solid background, I've cut other bits of the solid fabric from different pieces of the fabric and then Frankensteined it together so the motif looks like it's floating. And so you end up with these little seams everywhere, but it floats. It floats.
Yeah. Now, it's crazy, but I totally can relate to that. I could see myself doing the same thing because that is so satisfying because it's like perfectly framed. It's floating. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. And so when people are like, what do you do with the Swiss cheese? I'm like, there is very little Swiss cheese left in my life because if I take that print, I can use the background color somewhere else. And we're doing 100 days at the moment, and I've got a block coming up that I shared with the community when we were prepping for 100 days, and it's got a 1-inch half square triangle in it. And one of the ladies that was on the Zoom call went, did you use a solid? And I'm like, no, I just cut the solid color out of the background of the print. So like you can fussy, as I always say, you can fussy cut for color. You can just take some random piece of the print that is the color that you need and fits that piece and do a faux solid in your piecing. And then people are like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, that's how you end up with no Swiss cheese. It's like nose to tail farming. You can use every bit of that fabric without a problem. And again, I often give scraps to people because there are scrappy quilters out there who really enjoy the randomness of their blocks. So if there's like half a horse butt and a bit of a horse head, and whereas for me, I'm like, oh, that head needs to, be in the frame a bit. And so it's like a symbiotic relationship between the fussy cutter and the truly scrappy enthusiast that you can give your scraps to them and they're happy. Like and there's no waste.
Yeah, that's true.
You just got to find the right people. So in my head, I'm like, we need a fussy cutter club that meets like a convention. We all get together. And at the same time, there needs to be a scrappy quilter convention on the other side of the building. And the fussy cutters give all of their scrap pieces to the scrappy quilters and everyone will be happy. Like they're just
absolutely
happy.
Yeah, and then we'll have more space because we'll get rid of the scraps. We'll have more space for new fussy cut fabrics. And it's like recycling.
It's
right?
To quote the Lion King, it's the cycle of life. But yes.
100%. That's the life I want to be a part of. Yes, I want to be part of that cycle.
But like when people were going, you remember when Marie Kondo was really big about the whole if it sparks joy and downside, like cleaning up your life and all blah, 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 blah. And she was like, if you get something new in, you have to get something old out. And I'm like, she's obviously never met a quilter.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Nope. If I had to get rid of
all
fabric.
of the things, all of these things bring me joy, so I don't have to get rid of any of it.
No, and I'm bringing more in because this stuff's lonely. Like it needs more. Those bears need company of a sloth in the container with them so that they can talk while I'm not using them.
Yes. But they keep each other warm and
yeah,
absolutely.
I'm so happy to have met someone who understands.
Oh, I understand.
We need a support group. So I will wrap it up because I am conscious that you have that puzzle to finish and I have a cottage to go build in Minecraft. But thank you so much, Christina, for your time today. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for opening a fabric store all about fussy cutting. I look forward to spending thousands of dollars with you. Thank you for the invention of the 10-inch challenge, and I look forward to that.
We'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah, people, I'm only joking for peer pressure humor. So thank you again. I will have all the links to your shop and your account. And if people want to see that 10-inch square, we'll go find a photo of it and pop it in so you can get inspired as well. So thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me. I love geeking out about fabric, especially fussy cutting. And like you said, somebody that gets it. So it was a pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks for listening to the Fussy Cutters podcast. Enjoyed listening? Why not subscribe so you'll never miss an episode? Did you know the quickest way to the heart of any podcaster is to leave a review or recommend the podcast to a friend? It's true, it is. Until next week, get out there and fondle that fabric.